Besides Muhammad's own family, you also have the situation of women in the early community. And at the beginning of any social movement, religious movement, you often see women playing very prominent roles. You have the same situation in Christianity, right? A lot of Jesus' followers were also women, right? And a lot of important women in the early church as well, immediately or shortly after the death of Jesus. And we do see a similar kind of thing in this early community in Islam. Women were among some of the earliest converts to Islam and even some of its early martyrs. So I talked last night about how during a period of persecution in Mecca, some of Muhammad's followers left and went to Abyssinia in East Africa for protection. One of the things that precipitated this was a very brutal period of persecution where the mother of one of Muhammad's disciples, Abu Dhar, and she herself had converted to Islam, was tortured to death for her belief in Islam. The second Caliph, Omar, for example, who becomes a really important person, obviously he's the second leader of the Muslim community after the death of Muhammad, a very close companion of Muhammad, actually marries. Muhammad marries his daughter, Hafsa, who I just mentioned is his daughter. But Omar originally was really opposed to Muhammad's message in Mecca, and it was his sister who had embraced it and who had converted. And he comes to her house to confront her about these, very angry. She, he wants her to stop following Muhammad. He in fact hits her hard enough, it said, for blood to flow. But she doesn't back down. Instead, she starts reciting verses of the Quran. And Omar is so moved that he, in fact, becomes a Muslim as well. So you have these stories about women playing very important roles, sometimes quite heroic roles, in the early community. When Muhammad decides he has to leave Mecca and go from Mecca to Medina, he makes a pact with the people in Medina before he goes there, right? He meets with them ahead of time to arrange a situation where he and his followers can go to Medina and will be protected and taken care of by the people of Medina. And again, there were women who came and participated in this oath of allegiance as well. And then when they actually made the hijrah, the migration from Mecca to Medina, there were a number of women who defied their families on their own, left and went to Medina as well. Right? They fled Mecca on their own without the approval of their families, which was a very dangerous thing. Imagine at this time, there's no police force, there's nothing, right? Your family has total control over you. If their family had come, and they could easily come and have taken them, killed them, imprisoned them in their houses for the rest of their lives, those kinds of things would have been seen as normal in that tribal culture. So it was a very brave thing for them to do. Now, when we look at the life when they get to Medina, we have, again, a lot of accounts of women playing a very important public role in this new young community. So this image that I have here is obviously an artist's attempt to reproduce what the first mosque in Medina looked like. So it had this open central courtyard, which is where people would pray, and also was used for meetings and other things as well. And in the walls along the side here, built into the walls along the side, were small apartments. And that's where Muhammad's wives and where his family lived, his daughter and her husband lived. So they had houses that opened immediately. Anytime they went out of their houses, they opened immediately onto the courtyard of the mosque. So they were in the mosque all the time. So this idea, should women be in the mosque? Women are in the mosque all the time. So they lived in these apartments around the mosque. One of the things that Muhammad does that again becomes a basis for, let's say, women, people who are living in a situation of polygamy, is that Muhammad insisted that all of his wives have their own independent apartment, right? They didn't all live together in one big house, right? And that becomes a standard. So if a man in Islam takes more than one wife, he has to house each of them in their own space in their own household. It's not like they're all together in one big space, like the sort of images of the Ottoman harems. You have women hanging out all over around a pool, right? It wasn't like that. It was this idea that they had to be independent. Muhammad didn't have his own house. He would take turns. He would spend one night with each wife in rotation. And at one point, he became very upset with all of them because there was a lot of infighting between them. And so he decided he was going to kind of stay away from them for a period of time. And he had no place to stay, so he had to sleep, in the open air of the mosque. Okay, but besides the wives, again, we have many accounts. So Muhammad would teach here in the courtyard of the mosque under these trees, according to the tradition, surrounded by men. But we have cases where women would walk up right through the rows of men to stand in front of Muhammad and ask him a question, sometimes a very challenging question, to which he always is said to have replied very graciously. So women were clearly part of these public gatherings. Muhammad made a time to teach women by themselves. Women's work is never done, especially at this time. So the women were like, yeah, the men get to sit in the mosque and learn these things. We don't have time. We got to take care of the house. We got to take care of the animals. We got to take care of the kids. And so Muhammad is said to have set aside a time just for the women in the community to sit and learn from him in the mosque. As you know, this was a period in which there was a great deal of strife and struggle, a number of battles. For example, with the people of Mecca. And women are said to have participated, mostly in a support capacity, of course, in some of these battles. But we do have an account of one very brave woman who, at the Battle of Uhud, when Muhammad himself was injured, and everyone else was off fighting, Muhammad had stayed back, and he was injured, and other people were coming to attack him, and he grabbed a knife, and until other men got there, managed to sort of stave off people who were coming to attack Muhammad. So again, these are all accounts that the tradition relates in multiple places.